Would like to call the order of the Crestview Charter Review Committee meeting for Thursday, July 13th, 2017. The first item for consideration is approval of the minutes of June 29, 2017. Is there action?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes June 29, 2017.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions by the board? Hearing none, we call for the vote. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Just like to announce that Michelle is tied up in traffic. Hopefully she will be here shortly. The next item for consideration, or not consideration, but the next item on the agenda, I'd like to recognize Paul Lux, the Supervisor of Election. He's going to make a presentation to the committee tonight. Thank you for coming out, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. So she asked me to speak on a couple of topics, but mainly what I need to talk to you about is municipal referenda. And we will kind of go through this. So I've got my slideshow up there on the screen. So oh, am I not on the right? Gotta be somewhere. Oh, there it is. Okay. We found me. We found me. Okay.
Looks good.
All right. So the first thing I want to mention is the idea of Universal Municipal Election Day. Just to give you a little bit of background. So a lot of people ask, why is it we're doing Crestview elections? And the answer is House Bill. Oh, I'm cut half off the screen there. House Bill 2141 back in 1992 created Chapter Law 92-270. Okay, this is going to take forever. There we go. And basically that said that the Supervisor of Elections on the second Tuesday in March So basically, this sets then that the second Tuesday in March, the Supervisor of Elections is responsible for conducting all municipal elections in the municipalities listed in Section 1 as provided by the Florida Election Code and any other applicable laws, and shall be, more importantly, reimbursed by the applicable municipality for the actual cost of conducting the election for that municipality. The municipalities covered under that section: Cinco Bayou, Crestview, Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Laurel Hill, Mary Esther, and Shalimar. So those are the municipalities that by law we do the elections for. The city of Valparaiso has subsequently, by their own municipal action, joined the throng. So we have them under our umbrella as well, although they reserve certain of their abilities to themselves. Niceville, the only city that I do not do elections for. The important thing to remember for the city clicker. Yeah, this light's even off now. Is this bad? Is the battery dead in this, perhaps?
Slideshow's buffering.
Oh no, my slideshow's not buffering. Okay, well, this is going to make this go a lot slower because, well, go ahead and click until everything comes up on the slide. So the important thing to remember for the cities is that the municipal powers themselves are maintained. Nothing in the special act reduces or infringes upon any municipality's power under its own charter. This really only applies to, this says non-election matters. I changed that earlier today to say election matters, and I guess I've saved the wrong copy. So my relationship with the city, the laws itself are tied to the election laws of the state of Florida, and so the municipalities are not allowed to change their charter to reflect any changes that conflict with the election laws. And so there's a whole statute in the election code, 100.3605, that covers the conduct of municipal elections. So they are allowed, so although our chapter code governs the conduct of a municipality's elections in the absence of any special act, charter, or ordinance provision, no charter or ordinance can be adopted which conflicts with or exempts a municipality from any provision of the Florida Election Code that expressly applies to municipalities. So a quick look then at the referenda from the law side. Florida Statute 100.211 covers bond referenda. Some of this is extrapolation to other referenda. Just know that the governing authority of any district or municipality can create bond referenda. They shall give notice of the election in the manner prescribed in 100.342. That section of 103.342 covers legal notices to the electorate, basically saying by publication in newspapers of general circulation, made at least twice, once in the 5th week and once in the 3rd week. And when I say by extrapolation, we apply that same to ballot initiatives as well as bond referenda. The good news for the city, due to the special act, that notice is provided by my office as part of the election services that we provide. So our job is to write up those ads and make sure that they're published timely so that the election for those is noticed correctly. However, the advertising of the meetings, the legislation behind it, that falls into the lap of the cities themselves. So let's a quick look at the charter side then from the City of Crestview Charter. Section 2 under General Powers. Said city shall have and exercise all powers, rights, and privileges and immunities of cities incorporated under general law. What that's really a reference to is Chapter 166 in the Florida statutes. That is not my bailiwick. I am not a lawyer. I'm not allowed to give legal advice, and Chapter 166 is outside of the election code, but some of it, obviously, I have to know enough about to make things happen. So charter amendments are covered specifically under 166.031, and it says that there's 2 ways for municipal referenda to occur as it relates to charters. One is the governing body can pass an ordinance that will do that, and the other way is that electors by petition can sign by 10% of the registered electors. For the City of Crestview, just to give you an idea, that would be 1,362 signatures, which is actually about the number that people who run for countywide office need to collect if they're running for a countywide office. So in a town with just over 13,000 people, you'd have to get about 1,300 of them together to sign a petition to get a charter referendum on the ballot. To continue talking about the charter side, Florida Statute 166.041, the procedures for adoption of an ordinance and resolutions. Basically, the proposed ordinance has to be read on 2 separate days, at least 10 days prior to the adoption, and notice shall be given, date, time, and place of meeting. So sometimes this is problematic, and this is the notice that I mentioned is on the onus is on the city, not on my office, so I don't notice your public meetings, and I have nothing to do with that. We've had a couple of snafus over the years. Most notably, one of the last Crestview referenda, the meeting got canceled and the new meeting got moved, and so like the second reading wasn't properly noticed, and we went all the way down the process. I got the information from the city. I did all the advertising I was supposed to do, and then their lawyer said, wait a minute, we never publicly noticed that meeting, and so that referenda ended up being seen as just a straw poll. Non-binding referendum. It wasn't actually a referendum that counted. We had a similar, a slightly different issue in the city of Mariester a number of years ago. They actually changed the verbiage between the first reading and the second reading, and nobody noticed. They sent me the verbiage that went on the ballot, and then somebody noticed that there were 2 different versions of it, and so again, theirs got kind of tossed out, and again became more of an opinion poll rather than actually a binding referendum. So some limitations on referenda then that you need to know about. Florida statute, now we're back in the election code, 101.161 for referenda, says that it must be in clear and unambiguous language. I always love it when they use a term like that. So what does that actually mean? Well, nobody really knows. But your choices will be yes and no. And the amendment should be worded such that a yes vote clearly indicates approval and a no vote clearly indicates rejection. So you can't say, do you want to not do something, because that would confuse people into whether a yes actually meant yes or a no actually meant no. Now, who reviews city referenda for this test? And the answer is, well, hopefully the lawyer who wrote it made sure that they did it right. But it doesn't fall under my purview to review that for, there's no acid test, there's no meter I can put it into to say, is this clear and unambiguous language? Note too that the ballot title is restricted. The title can only be up to 15 words in length, and typically that tends to be just by whatever the measure is commonly referred to. So like if it's a charter referendum, it'll say it's a charter referendum or whatever. And then finally, the ballot summary itself, the actual verbiage of what's going to happen. The explanatory statement of the chief purpose of the measure cannot exceed 75 words. There's only one exception to this under the law, and that was conveniently put there by the Florida legislature, and it only applies to the Florida legislature. So they are allowed to exempt themselves from that 75-word restriction, and did so quite recently, as many of you noticed. The last time y'all had that big giant ballot with 500-word amendments, that was them. When it comes to costs, then, let's talk briefly about the cost of elections. A citywide standalone election, just a WAG, a good faith estimate, I would pitch the number somewhere around $13.5. If you do a referendum election in conjunction with another countywide election, you really are only paying for the cost of legal advertising. I'm required to publish the notice twice, which I already mentioned. The notice of public testing and canvassing board meetings, all of that stuff ties together. So the approximate cost to the city for working in conjunction with another countywide election would be around $1,000. If we choose to do a mail ballot election, which you are allowed to do if the ballot is only going to have questions on it and will not have candidate races, Florida statute allows you to do a mail ballot election. Basically, every voter is mailed a ballot to their mailing address. Then they return the ballot, and we just count them and treat them all like absentee ballots. So a mail ballot election, and again, this is just a guess because we haven't done a mail ballot election in a long time, and postage rates change and stuff like that. But anywhere between $10,000 and $14,000 for a mail ballot election, depending on a number of factors that the city could kind of tweak as we went along. So a quick history then. First, let's look at this century's history of referenda. In 2014, they had an economic development incentive referenda that passed. 2012, in the general election, they had a charter replacement amendment for council, city administrative form of government, and an appointed city clerk, which failed. In 2002's general election, there was a charter amendment that was calling for 4-year staggered terms for mayor and the city council, which passed. And an amendment on the display of the Ten Commandments, Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration on city property, which also passed. In 2000, some may argue last century, not this one, but in 2000, in the presidential preference primary, again, countywide election, there was a charter amendment for 4-year staggered terms for mayor and city council, which failed. I would point out that every one of these was done in conjunction with another countywide election. So just bear that in mind. The next slide is a history of the Crestview referenda from last century, going all the way back to when we started doing your elections for you, actually just a little bit before. So general election in 1998, charter amendment, again, council manager form of government, weak mayor, and remove the city clerk, which failed. In 1993, 2 referenda, one, again, a charter amendment for a city manager, weak mayor form of government, which failed. And then an alternate communication services, which was a non-binding referendum, which passed. That one was a little weird. There was something to do with cable TV and some communications thing that I'm sure has absolutely no bearing on anybody anymore. And then in 1991, by municipal election, a charter revision to move to a council manager form of government with 4-year staggered terms, which failed. Are you seeing a pattern here of what is failing in the city of Crestview? So, they also asked me to briefly go over forms of municipal government. I know you guys are probably going to hear tons about this if you haven't already heard too much already. I unabashedly stole all of this information from the National League of Cities website, so if you've already been to their website and pieced through all of their stuff, then you've already heard most of this. The first one that they list is the council manager form of government, where you have a city council that oversees general administration, makes policy, and sets budget. You have a council that appoints a professional city manager to carry out the day-to-day operations. And the mayor is often chosen from among the council on a rotating basis, kind of like the way our Board of County Commissioners chooses its chairman. This is one of the most common forms of government in use in 55% of the cities, according to their survey from 2006, and is most popular in cities with populations of over 10,000. The next form is called a commission form of government. In that form of government, voters elect individual commissioners to a small governing board. Each commissioner is responsible for one specific aspect of the city management: fire, police, public works, etc. One commissioner is designated as chairman or mayor to preside over meetings, and the commission has both legislative and administrative functions. This is one of the oldest forms of city government. It's used in less than 1% of cities nationwide, most popular in cities with populations less than 100,000. Shalimar works a little bit like that. Shalimar has commissioners, and each one of their commissioners is assigned a specific job or section that they are in charge of. Town meeting, this one really goes way back. All voters basically meet to decide policy and elect officials to carry out the policies. One of the purest forms of democracy. It allows all eligible voters a direct voice in local policy decisions, and frighteningly enough, about 5% of cities use this. I'm not sure how they get anything done, but there you go. Representative town meeting. This one's kind of like town meeting, only here the voters select a large number of citizens to go represent them at town meeting. So it still sort of works the same way, only you're electing a certain percentage of the population to go and represent you at town meetings. Again, the town meetings are announced just like regular things are. The selectmen are responsible for implementing policy. This is used in less than 1% of cities, and almost exclusively in small New England municipalities. And they're probably welcome to keep doing that. So, current trends in municipal government then. Again, this is information from the League of Cities. Most forms are less distinct than they used to be, and that's because the common practice has become incorporating features from two or more forms or a hybrid. The most common mix is a hybrid of mayor, council, and council manager form of government. The most common proposal when it comes to referenda was to add the position of chief administration officer or city manager. Other common traits include how to select the mayor and either a decrease or an increase in mayoral powers. That's usually what those kinds of referenda focus on. So going forward then, the decision point comes to this. Number one, when do you want the election, if there's going to be one? If your recommendation to the city is to have one, we need to know, from my perspective, is it going to be a standalone election? Is it going to piggyback on another county-wide election? Is it going to be a mail ballot election? And then for timeline purposes, it really depends on what the decision point choice is. I need the final language 3 to 6 months prior to the proposed election date. But for example, if you're going to do a mail ballot election, if that's their choice, I have to have time to present a plan to the Division of Elections and seek their approval of the mail ballot plan, so it isn't something that I can just unilaterally do without having to build some stuff into my timeline to make certain things happen. If you're just going to piggyback on a countywide election or do a standalone election or even in conjunction with a regular city election, second Tuesday in March in odd-numbered years, just having that final ballot language about 3 months prior is usually sufficient enough. But again, 6 months if we're going to do something else. Questions?
I have a comment. Thank you.
You can have comment.
That was a good
I might not like all the
presentation.
comments, but you can have.
Well, I think you'll like this one. We thank you and appreciate all of our county representatives being with us tonight. Did a good job, I think there, Paul. You went into the forms of government better than what we have been provided to us, and it could just come off the league website. But I thank you very much. Any other questions or comments to the speaker?
I do have one.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Lux. One question I do have is, have you been involved in any of the mail-in ballots historically, or do you have historical data that can be put together?
The only time we have ever done a mail ballot election in Okaloosa County was for the Baker Fire District, and that was back in the probably like 2002 timeframe. So of course a much smaller demographic of folks. So that's really the only time we have ever delved into a mail ballot election. Now, of course, for regular elections, I mail out tens of thousands of absentee ballots to everybody, and we get back and count tens of thousands of absentee ballots. I think our last number in the last election was almost in the 40,000 range. So 13,000 ballots for the city of Crestview, I don't imagine being a far stretch for us.
Okay. The reason I bring that, I ask is because during the last, at least local election, it was 3.6% voter turnout. And a lot of what
Yes,
we're
we noticed.
doing right now, if we only have 3.6% of the people actually turn out, is going to be a lot of work for nothing. Not in a bad way, you know. But, how many people turn out when it's combined with a county?
Well, so you have to understand there's the difference between turnout, which means how many people were presented with the race, whether they chose to vote in it or not, versus how many votes were cast in a race. You're talking about two very different animals. Okay? So if a ballot question for a municipality goes on a general election ballot, you are going to go behind at the end of the ballot. The law says that's where all the referenda questions go. The state constitutional amendments and ballot initiatives go first. Countywide ballot initiatives go second. School board go third. Municipalities fall behind them. So you're talking about the backside and the bottom end of the ballot. So you suffer from what we call ballot drop-off then, because you get people that give up and get tired after reading too much of it on the front, and then they flip it over and they see all those words and they go, oh, criminy, and they just turn their ballot in and they don't vote. So the percentage of turnout in that case is going to be as high as the national election is, because that's how many people were presented with the race. Now, did all of those people choose to vote in that race? Different question. And what we normally see is ballot drop-off when we do have that. I mean, I could crunch some numbers, or you can actually look. All of the results from those are on our website. So I mean, you can see how many votes were cast in those recent elections that I referenced, and that would give you an idea if you go look at how many people voted in, say, the governor's race, and then how many people voted in the city of Crestview race. It'd give you an idea of about how many people were likely interested in voting in that. I can tell you anecdotally. You have states like Oregon and Washington that do all mail ballots, and their turnout is not historically any higher than any other state's turnout that conduct elections the regular way. So a mail ballot election where everybody gets mailed a ballot who's eligible to vote is not a panacea to fix low voter turnout.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our speaker?
I have a question. Let's say that we do get to putting something on a ballot to vote on. Can that charter change be one item, or does it have to be broken down into many items?
Well, so if you go back and look, and I would encourage you to, if they haven't given you the information already, to go back and look at all the previous attempts and see what they did. Because I can tell you that if you go back and look at what Fort Walton did just a couple of years ago, they made about 7 changes to their charter, and they did it through 7 different ballot questions. Now that sometimes means things you thought you wanted get dropped because the voters don't like this one issue, but the upside is you get all the ones that the voters do want. What has plagued Crestview as a problem in the past, in my opinion, has been that they do a bunch of change, but you're limited to 75 words to explain what those changes are. And when people can't see everything that's going to change, they're much more apt to vote no than they are to vote yes. So, like I say, if you go back and look at the verbiage go back and look at the ordinance that they passed to call for those referenda, and then go back and look at what the ballot question actually said, and then whether it passed or failed, and in most cases it was failed. And I think what you're going to discover is when you try a catch-all to get everything, what you're going to get is people who go, if I can't see everything that's changing, I'm going to vote no rather than yes. That's just been my experience.
Follow up to that. Is there a limit to how many questions I can have on the ballot?
Sort of. The biggest piece of paper I can use is 17 inches long, 8.5 inches wide. Now, of course, we did a two-card ballot back in 2012, and I don't recommend that for anybody because the voter fatigue by the time they got to the second card, never mind to the back of the second card. So I won't say there's a limit because there is not. But just bear in mind, voter fatigue being a very real problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none?
All right.
Thank you for
Thank you,
taking
Mr.
time
Chairman.
to come out this afternoon.
Members?
Oh, Mr.
Ask
Calzett.
Alderman, talk about the results of what you just did for Auburn Water. How many mailed and how many returned?
We mailed, and we just counted them. We mailed over 6,000, and we had about 663 come back, I think. So
10.
right around a 10% turnout.
3 times what we got last
And that was for the Auburn Water Board. Yeah, we do their election. I mean, it's a paid gig. They pay us the whole cost of doing their election for them. It's not an official election because they're a commercial entity, not a government entity. But so yeah, I think they were just over the 10% mark.
We have one more question from the
Sir,
audience.
can you describe what the technical error was in sending out these referenda initially?
In relation to which one?
Yeah, what the reason why you're speaking here today?
I'm speaking here because I was asked.
Yes, but so what went wrong with the referenda from technical perspective?
Well, so like I said, sometimes what they've done is they've had too broad of too many topics covered under a very small umbrella. So, when a referenda question says, we want to change to a, city manager form of government and we want to, limit the powers of the mayor and then all these other things that ordinance, XYZ says we're going to do. Well, when the voters in the voting booth, they don't know what all of that other stuff is. And so what oftentimes happens is when they can't see the full scope of what's changing, they're just going to say, then I'll vote no, because I don't know what else they're going to change. Whether I agree with the things that are enumerated that I can see, what I can't see is what scares me. So I mean, obviously, if you had a good voter education effort, I mean, if the city were to send out copies of the actual ordinance and say, here's everything that's going to change, it's all right here, so that everybody can see it. I promise you, if you rely on them going to your website to get it, or going to Cal's website to get it, or going to another news agency's website to get it, they're not going to go and get it. They don't ever come to mind to get it either, as a rule. So, and of course, we mail them sample ballots that they also say they don't get after they end up in the trash can, I'm sure. But so, suffice it to say, I mean, voter education is part of the issue. The other times when we had the technical issues, I think I explained those pretty thoroughly. In one case, one of the required advertising meetings was not properly noticed because they changed the date of the meeting and then didn't renotice the meeting. And in the other one, they actually passed at 2 separate readings 2 different versions of the amendment, which caused problems.
What was this in reference to?
Other cities' charter referenda.
Do you remember the precise referenda with this 2 different?
Well, they were both charter referenda. One for the city of Crestview, one for the city of Mariester.
Thank you. I just want to know, can I specifically refer to that? I want to be able to specifically refer to that when I refer to it, so I don't know precisely what you're referring to.
I would have to pull out the ballot language I'd have to go into the files for the ballot language.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I keep a lot up here, but
Yeah.
have to keep room for the important stuff.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah.
One more.
So when we have these referendums, we live in such a conservative county and state. Are you able to put whether or not it's going to cause an increase to the county, or can you put something like that on the ballot to say whether or not it's going to have any significant cost? Or
Absolutely. So remember, you're still restricted to the 75 words. Now, constitutional amendments, specifically call for a fiscal impact statement, and they are given an additional 75 word or 15 words for their fiscal impact statement. But you are unfortunately not given that same latitude. So if you want a fiscal impact statement, it has to be written into the amendment.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Cal, then we'll move along.
If there were 2 or more questions, can each question have its 75 words?
Absolutely.
Okay.
75 per.
Okay, that clarifies that part of it. So you
And,
can-
and like I say, if you go back and look, and if the sample ballots aren't still on my website from that municipal election with Fort Walton, just email me and I can send them out to everybody or whatever. But, the way they did it was, like I said, they had like 7 different referenda questions, and I don't think any of them even came close to the 75 word mark. But yes, we do count them.
Thank you very much. Or if there's any specific question, call the Fort Walton Beach City Manager. He was at the discussion up at Warriors Hall sometimes back, and that's the way they got some changes to their charter, was breaking
Some
it.
quite significant ones too. I
Yes,
mean, term
they-
limiting the
some
mayor
good
and
changes
a
that
bunch
were
of
not
stuff.
able to be passed in one title.
Yep.
7 out of 8, I believe, is what
Yeah.
it was.
That's probably why the number 7 stuck in my head. And my information's up there on the screen, so my email, my office phone, you can contact me directly, any one of you if you need to.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you.
Good presentation. Okay, we'd like to move on. The next item on the agenda is the interactive committee discussions. Last time we met, this was suggested, so I don't know what format to really go by, so we'll just start with the originator, then we'll proceed in this direction, then come pick up and move back to the chair, if that's acceptable. Okay, so we go, and I believe we said 2 or 3 minutes.
Try to keep it as concise as possible.
Okay.
The real reason why I wanted to have this on this evening's agenda is so that we can figure out exactly where we stand as a committee. If certain things we already can rule out, then we can rule them out and just move on and get on with it. I am for a much more efficient operating city, utilizing the pro-manager structure, or pro-city manager structure. It allows the city council to focus on what a city council is supposed to focus on. It allows one centralized boss for evaluations yearly, or hiring, firing, central point for that. It allows the city to have a better stature as you project up and out to the county level, to the state level, and it gives those elevated levels the ability to hone in on one specific person and communicate back to the city. When it comes to the council, this is something I definitely need to educate myself more on. And I will get the information on the precinct numbers and census data. But certain municipalities have 5, others have 7. What best fits? Crestview is something I think we do need to evaluate to broaden that, since we have maybe outgrown what our precincts can handle. And then that pretty much wraps up where I stand at the given time.
And if you will, I forgot to ask, if you will, each individual as you speak, would you identify yourself for those in the audience, or even for whatever? Just identify yourself as you begin your comments, please. Sorry about that.
Andrew Rensich, by the way.
Eugene Strickland.
You don't have any other comments?
We're ready for your comments, Mr. Strickland.
Ready for your sermon.
2 or 3 minutes of how you feel about the
It'll be an
charter.
hour.
My text is, well, my concern is efficiency. and I'm not convinced at this point that the city manager style is the very best. I'm still learning, and I trust that we all are still learning. But I can share that my experience in Crestview is the growth of the area, growth of the city, has placed a lot of pressure on every person involved. And at this point, I'm open to hearing reports such as Mr. Lux has shared, and Mr. How do you pronounce your name?
Andrew Rensage.
Andrew. And I think at some point we will all be prepared to make a decision, but at this point we're still learning. I think that's significant.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland.
Josh Molyneux. Given it some thought, and I think that research and testimony so far has demonstrated that the city manager form of government, while not the only solution, probably offers the best solution for where Crestview is at this point in time. Some people have tossed the idea of a strong mayor or city manager or remaining the same. And I think the reason we can't go down the route of a strong mayor form of government is that it's easily twice as expensive to get started. City manager would be significantly more cost effective with the initial costs. And as far as some of the specifics, I definitely think that the city of Crestview needs to change its governmental structure. For example, our charter currently calls for a city physician, and I think it's time that we remove that outdated entity from our charter. And I believe that restructuring to incorporate a city manager with all department heads, to include city clerk and the public safety falling under that city manager, I think we should do that as well. Of course, there's other things that we could discuss further on down the road, but city manager with this basically all department heads falling underneath would be the most efficient model for Crestview to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Warren Robinson.
Mr. Robinson.
I'd like to hear from some of the people that are actually sitting in these positions and tell me what they're doing. Because I don't know. I really don't. I know we pay some of the highest gas tax in the county for roads, and the standards of the roads in this city are poor. I don't understand why that is. I'm sure someone can explain that to me, but I just want to kind of get a better understanding of how people are making these decisions, and you know, kind of maybe even they can probably tell me the pros and cons of them holding that position, justifying their position, basically what I'm asking. But I'd like to hear from those people that are sitting in these positions within the city and tell me exactly what they're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. And a good place to start with that was provided by Teresa, was a copy of the charter.
Yes.
That we have included in our previous package, some of their responsibilities.
Yes.
That was provided in. It's not easy reading, but it is their duties and responsibilities of the elected officials. That includes the mayor, the clerk, and the city council. So a good place to start without having them come before us personally would be to review their duties and responsibilities included in the charter that was provided. It's just a thought. Yes, ma'am.
Adrienne McKinney. I like things to be kept simple, streamlined, keep moving. You have to look at growth and development here in Crestview because it's not getting smaller, it's just gonna continue to get larger. And with that being said, I'm looking toward a manager, city manager, somebody that can, these department heads can fall up under and report to this one entity. I think that would, level the playing field. You got one person that's reporting, doing everything with the city council, and things will keep moving, operations keep moving, in the absence of, things should not stop because somebody is on leave or anything like that. Everything should keep moving in the city. So that's where I am with this right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
And I apologize, I was late due to traffic. My name is Michelle Simmons. Was there traffic tonight? I know, very simply. It's anonymous, or it's a Chinese proverb, or probably an African proverb. When is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. So I think that we are given this opportunity to look at maybe something that didn't pass before, but it's different times. We have individuals that are on social media that are encouraged, well, maybe they're discouraged, but we can encourage them that we are looking at this thoughtfully. Ms. McKinney and I are not boys. It's not the good old boys network. So we can look at this with new eyes, and I think youth, Andrew, you're young, so I think we've got a lot of things going for this committee, and I think when we present it to the voters, if we get to, I think, I think it looks good. I'm in favor of a city manager.
Thank you very much. What I've done is try to look at what we have as our city charter, and it was stated down earlier that there certainly needs to be a update to what we have. I'm not saying necessarily a change, but necessarily a update and clear up what we try to operate on a day-to-day. And my comments relating to the charter is summed up in oversight. We need a person, whether it's a manager or whatever we would elect to call that person, to collectively represent our city. I would like to see our mayor do what mayors do most traditionally. That is represent our city and meet with our people. It's more than kissing babies. But he has a difficult job overseeing the police and fire department. That's a full-time job. I think the mayor is burdened where he doesn't have the time to do what a mayor needs to be to represent our city on a county, state, and whatever level that the mayor needs to represent us. If we need a caboose, we'd like to have a mayor that could go out and find us a caboose if we get a depot. So I see a mayor having an opportunity to serve the city more as a mayor should, not having to have the oversight of the police and fire department continuously. As it comes to the clerk's office, I see oversight. The department collects the money. They count the money. They put it in the lock box. They write the checks. They report to the council as the clerk, as specified by the existing charter, specifies her to do. But the clerk has wide responsibilities. She signs the check, she collects the money, she counts the money. So I'm looking for an individual that the clerk is accountable to. But right now, the clerk is not accountable to anyone, except the charter. If the mayor and the city council takes the responsibility upon themselves, as the charter allows them to do, they're on their own. And years ago, we saw that type of activity happen in our city. It was a bad time. 6 years ago, you can work yourself into a situation where no one is in control, or a very few handful of people, which are not your elected officials, are in control of your government. So I'm in favor of the city council. I like our form of government. It's operated well. We're the fourth largest municipality in Northwest Florida, Tallahassee, Pensacola, Panama City. We're there. But we have problems. We're a growing city. What the county does, north, east, and west of city of Crestview, impacts the city. You go down to the Ferdon parking lot or Highway 85 parking lot on Saturday between 10 and 2, you can see. You go up in Alabama, you see the signs, the quickest route to the beaches, straight through Crestview to hit the bypass at Niceville. And that's the way the people are coming. And when they get out of town, they're going westbound, or they're coming through on I-10, or they're coming through the city. So that's good for business, but it's bad for local folks as it relates to traffic congestion. The city of Crestview has tried to work with a TPO over the years for help and relief. I'm glad to say that the county is taking more interest, that they have some responsibility with the traffic that's generated that passes through the city of Crestview. South end of Okaloosa County has super amount. Walden County impacts what flows through Crestview, and the city of Crestview doesn't have the ability to correct that issue. It comes from way higher than us. FDOT, the interstate system, county. So we need outside help related to that. And I think a manager, being the person that represents our city, that speaks for our city, our mayor, our city council, and all of our cities, is the way to go. Thank you very much. Okay, any comments or questions about has been said? We'll even take a comment from the audience if you like, if you will allow that. Yes, sir.
I just have two quick things. Again, Paul Lux, Supervisor of Elections. Two quick things. One, I gave the paper copy of my presentation to her so she can make copies for you, since I didn't think to bring a paper copy of your presentation for y'all today. The other thing I want to mention is, and Josh, you mentioned it, and Ellis, you mentioned it as well, and that's the idea of the city clerk reporting to somebody. And I just want to make sure you understand that as a current elected position, that would need to change before that person could be subordinate to a person who is not elected. So just bear that in mind, that when you're talking charter change, that would facilitate a change to the clerk's position to be non-elected.
And that relates to the timing of the charter referendum.
Yep. Just want to make sure you understand
Because she
that.
would continue on, if you have the referendum before and the mayor, it would continue on until their term.
Exactly, till the end of their terms. So if you made a change midterm, they're going to have to serve out their term before they can be removed. or
Teresa
appointed.
passed
Understood, thank you.
some copies of the charter, and I just passed these on down for your viewing pleasure, if you will. Okay, is there any additional comments as it relates to our interactive committee discussion? I thank everyone for participating, and they were all good comments.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda, I'd like to acknowledge Teresa. is supplies and receive information, data research requests. Teresa, would you like to address that?
You need a hand, Teresa?
Thank you. I had emailed you copies, Teresa Gaylord, Administrative Assistant to the Council. I had emailed you copies of Ordinance 1474. It is the ordinance that was sent through with the charter in it. The pack that you've got there is just the prettied up version that they had provided at that time. So I would like to give you a copy of the ordinance. Let me just take one and pass down. There you go.
Teresa promised us a big, thick booklet by the time we finish this project. And it
Close
grows-
to needing it
It
already,
grows
yeah.
each week, but it's something to prop your head on to get.
By the time we get to the next meeting, we'll probably have to change out our notebooks to be our 2-inch binders, so we will have them ordered for you. It was also requested to secure the meeting minutes for the Charter Review Committee as they went through in order to produce the document that you got in front of you, which proved to be a little bit challenging. I have located some of the meeting minutes, and I've located some agendas, so I have copied what I have found so far on the Charter Review Committee, which is a very good reason why we need to have very good records kept and archives, so that after a charter change is done, it's also suggested that every 10 years that it be revisited so that it doesn't get into critical shape again. So the documentation that you have before you needs to be in a good archival form so that the next committee will have that too upon request. And they won't be back digging in the dungeon to try to find it. But we were so graciously allowed some of the information. Mr. Ellis had some of the information in copies where he had actually provided to us. We did have his notebook, so we appreciate that. And we had a piece of a notebook, don't know whose it was. It was simply a member there. So we have compiled what we have for you. We're not finished with it, but I have a package for each one. I think
I did.
Michelle
Yes, ma'am.
had requested this, so if you will
Now-
take one and pull it down.
Yes.
Also, the last two charter review committees, I filmed all of it. It's all on the Crestview TV website somewhere. It's archived, and you can go search it, but all those meetings were documented video-wise, too, so you can. Sometimes it's interesting to see the inflection in her voice and her eyes when they talk.
Very good. Would that be something that we could assemble maybe on a thumb drive or on CDs or something, or is it too
So
large?
That's so much HD videos. The best way to go, just go look at it.
Go look at it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and review it.
Because I can put the audio on the drive, so you can actually look at smaller files.
Okay, okay.
Teresa, just for your reference, also Derek Lott, previous committee member, his book is turned in with the clerk as well. It was about 110 pages.
Okay, well, we had requested copies of all that the city clerk had, and,
You have anything else for us tonight, Teresa?
I need if there's requests for any additional, research or information.
Does any of the board members have any request of Teresa for additional information to get lined up for our next meeting as we move forward to discuss setting that meeting date and time? So any requests for Teresa at this time? Okay, moving forward.
Okay. The next meeting is set for August the 3rd at 6 o'clock. We will have a guest speaker. So, and the only supplies I think that we need are the larger notebooks. Is there anything else that we need? I don't know how you're progressing with your dividers. Is there anyone that wishes to have a supply of dividers to go in your notebook or a particular type? If you will let me know so that we can order those and have them for you on the meeting on the 3rd. So any office type supply that you need, stickies, markers. We had failed to bring that up to you, but those are also items that we should supply. Just let me know so that we can assemble them for you for the 3rd.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, if anything comes up within the next week or two, if you need something or like Teresa to provide something, if you will, get in touch with her and she'll try to accommodate any board member that has a request of her, try to do her best. Is there any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience tonight? Any comments from our board members?
I do.
Okay.
We definitely, as the time draws a little bit closer, we're already getting, next meeting's gonna be 3 August. We really need to start trying to focus on what multifaceted type of ballot we're going to be putting together. You know, it was great. We definitely know a little bit more about each other and about what our views are and where we stand and who we've spoke with in the community stands. But we got to start hammering that out and getting that on paper and moving from there.
Okay. Any other comments? I'd just like to ask the committee members, this ordinance 1474 that we were provided tonight was over a year's work by a previous committee. I'm not saying it was the best product, but it was a good product. To take that document and take your charter that you all have in your documents, and basically the function of the clerk's office, the function of the mayor's office, and the function of the city council and their duties and responsibilities. Compare that to the previous document, and we can address what was just mentioned. I think we can, if we need to break it down to 3, 4, or however many items for the ballot, we can start discussing that after we review these 2 documents and take advantage of what has been prepared before. It's like preparing a new ordinance or a resolution. The person in charge of that are building engineering a design for a building. They don't go out and recreate everything. They go find an ordinance that's already written, that's prepared, and make that their draft and add to or take away from it. And I think if we are time efficient, that we can take what we have and take the best of that and add something a little better and move forward and move along with the timetable that we've been requested by our council. Any other comments?
Mr. Connor, I was wondering, would it be possible at some time in the month of August to do a longer meeting, a more workshop style, where we can discuss structure of government and actually writing things out that might go on a ballot? Because I just don't know how much work we can accomplish in an hour and a half, very formal setting such as this.
I think that's good. After our next meeting, after we go through what we've been provided, I think that's a good idea, that we schedule a workshop type setting and hammer out some specifics maybe to discuss at future meetings to as it relates to the wording of the item, number of items for the charter amendment. Good idea. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Are you suggesting a round table? Are you suggesting something where you move down into a less formal, more informal round table discussion?
My vision would be something far more informal where we can look each other in the eyes and actually discuss things. Yes.
Just keep in mind your audio now, for documenting it, I'm serious, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. If we're going to build our round table, we're going to go ahead and set some plans for it so we can ensure that we have the microphone and so the audio and
Thank you.
recording can be done.
And after the August meeting, the 3rd, we'll set that time.
We've
Is that
got the 3rd, the 17th, and the 31st in August.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. Any other business to be brought before the committee tonight? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
The second.
Second? We stand adjourned.